Okay.
At our hunting camp, we considered this pretty elevated.
It was so funny. She was talking the whole time too, and she was really telling all the stories too.
I'm gonna be a rebel. That's why you pay you the big bucks.
Good morning. If we could please get started. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. It's May 5th, 2022. The Lee County Port Authority Board of Commissioners and Airport Special Management Committee meeting. If we could please stand for the invocation. We have Pastor Wade Harmon of McGregor Baptist Church here this morning. Pastor, thank you.
Warm greetings from McGregor Baptist Church. Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for another glorious, beautiful day of your creation to enjoy here in Southwest Florida. We ask that you would be with us this morning and that your wisdom would dwell and flow through this critical meeting. Be with each member and those present as they discuss, determine critical plans, issues, and directions for our beloved community. We ask you give them good discussions and keen minds. We thank you, Jesus, for the free gift of eternal life found only in you. It's by grace alone, through faith alone, and not of works, lest anyone should boast. Be with us now, we pray, in the name above all names, the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, Pastor, for your time. I notice we have, this is probably the safest building in Lee County right now to be in. I notice we have a lot of airport police officers that are here this morning, firemen. If I could have all the airport police departments stand up just to be recognized. So thank you for... Thank you for protecting our border. People don't realize this is the border. Everybody keeps talking about Mexico on our border, but this airport is actually the border of Lee County. So thank you, because I know we have a large influx of illegal activity come through this airport between drugs and guns and everything else and money. So also, Henry's here from the 1826 fire. So Henry, thank you for the fire department being here too. Wouldn't forget you either. So thank you. Okay, this time we ask for public comment on the consent agenda. Any public comment on the consent agenda? No public comment. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items be pulled by discussion by the board from the consent agenda. Commissioner Mann?
No.
Commissioner Hammond?
I have none.
I have none. Commissioner Sandelli?
None. I have none.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the balance.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections to consent? Objection, consent passes. Administrative, Ben, number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask Mr. McGonigal to introduce the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Brian McGonigal. Nice to see you. Number 9 is simply a month-to-month agreement, non-participating airport use agreement with Eurowings Discover. Eurowings started back up last month, 3 flights a week to Frankfurt. It's great to see them back. This is just a standard agreement.
Any questions for staff at this time? Any public comment on this item? Item number 9.
I'll move the item.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 10, Ben.
Thank you.
Right,
Administrative item number 10 is request board approve a second amendment to the airport use agreement, our airline airport use agreement with Frontier Airlines. Frontier Airlines is one of our participating airlines that signed out into 2023. They're looking for more space. We had a little 200 square feet of ticket space in the counter, and we had about 160 square feet underneath in our ops area, so we need to amend the lease for that.
Great, thank you. Any public comment on item number 10? Come back to the board for a
I'll move
motion.
the item.
We have a motion, second by Commissioner Hammond. Any other discussion? Any objection? No objection, motion carries.
Thank you.
Number 11.
Number 11, we're requesting the board rank proposals submitted for RFP 2217 for IBM Maximo upgrade, migration, and associated services. Maximo is a robust work order system used by our maintenance department. It's probably one of the best out there, Maximo. Our maintenance department enters thousands of work orders a year. This tracks all the work, helps with preventive maintenance, helps with inventory management. The system that we have, we've been using it since 2009. It's at end of life on support. So we had to do a proposal. We put an RFP on the street to get a really good qualified firm to help us upgrade this. And we also not only want to take it to the newest version, we want to push this system to the cloud so we don't have to maintain it on our expensive servers. We'll go up to the cloud, which is kind of the way to go lately. And also, for our maintenance guys that are out in the field, we want the next version of Maximo to be used on their tablets and phones. So we actually got 9 proposals back in January. We had a staff evaluation committee in February, actually on February 10th. It was a 6-hour meeting. This committee, very technical discussion. They felt that out of those 9 firms, 3 of them rose to the top, and those 3 were Starboard, IHCS, and EDI. All 3 firms can absolutely do this work. We've worked with them in the past, but Starboard, the committee felt that Starboard was slightly better. Their presentation was very polished, and they are a 100% Maximo company. That's all they do. They know it in and out. So that's what we recommended to ASMC, that they rank Starboard #1 and not hear presentations. Back in just 2 weeks ago at April 19th, ASMC, they agreed. So we're recommending that we go ahead and rank Starboard #1 and bring the contract back to you at a later date.
Thank you. Any public comment on item number 11? Come back to the board for any discussion or questions.
I have a question.
Ray?
You know, this is for facilities itself, as I think we talked about in the brief. And we're obviously growing in RSW. I was at Pagefield, I think twice this past week. We continue to grow there. Is there a possibility or a necessity to start integrating the system into our facilities at Pagefield as well?
This is only RSW, right? You guys have another work
I know it's
order.
only RSW correctly, but.
Yep.
Just a question.
Yeah, I'd have to defer that to James or Scott.
Morning, Scott Sheets, Pagefield, for the record. We looked at Maximo probably 10 or so years ago when we were looking at CMMS products for Pagefield, and we decided to go with a different product, Prodigic, at the time. It fits us better.
Okay. I know in other parts of the county, we're looking at how do we integrate same systems and how they talk to each other and how they're, more efficient. And I'm not making a judgment on it. I'm just saying I go to Page and I go, well, we're really growing, as well as RSW. Is there a way to have some synergy there? If not, I certainly trust you guys' judgment.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Okay.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we do have a system that we're working with right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the board at this time on this item? Being none, we'll come back for a motion.
So moved. I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion, any objection? Motion carries. Number 12.
Item number 12, Commissioner, Brian McGonigal's gonna.
Sure, I can, yeah, this is Steve Hennigan's out today. This one is request board approve a second extension to the service provider agreement for landscaping at Page. This is P&T Lawn. They're doing a good job out there. We decided to extend it two more years at the same cost. So we outsource all our landscaping, most of our landscaping at Page.
Thank you. Any public comment, item number 12? Being none, we'll come back to the board for discussion.
I'll move the item.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion, any objection? No objection, motion carries. Item number 13.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Fisher, Airport Development. Item number 13 is a design contract for the next phase of expansion here at RSW, a new Concourse C. This project will increase airline gates by 50%, adding 14 to the existing 27-gate terminal. It also will add vehicle lanes to the upper and level roadway system, add airline ticket counters and restrooms, Look for additional opportunities for VIP lounges, provide added capacity to our TSA checkpoints and automated outbound baggage handling system, expand our chiller plant, and add taxiways and aircraft parking apron, and a lot of things. It's a big project with an early estimate of over $600 million. It would be one of the largest projects ever in Southwest Florida.
Any public comment, item number 13? The board for discussion or any questions or motion?
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to ask just a couple questions. Certainly plan to support this. It's something that we've discussed at length in our workshop too, but could we just go over again just how are we going to pay for the $600 million and the financing for all that?
So, Mark, I'll go ahead and
Yep.
I'll take that. So the financing for the project, the preliminary financing plan is going to be state grants, revenue bonds, and we're hopeful that there'll be some infrastructure funds that are available as well, and passenger facility charges. We have not determined the exact allocation of how that'll be paid for. Our hope is that we're going to, obviously use as little as revenue bonds as possible. Our bonding capacity, as you all know, is limited. However, currently, it's somewhat healthy. We don't know exactly what this project's going to cost. We estimate it to be around $600 million, but we haven't designed anything yet. So, but that's our very preliminary plan.
Excellent.
So,
Thanks,
if
Mr.
that answers your question.
It does. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions, discussions? Mark, do you have a timeline? I know it states in there a certain, I think 2024, I think it is.
Yes, sir. The design contract for you today is an 18-month design schedule. And then we plan on 6 months of procurement to bring construction contracts back to you. And right now, again, as Ben mentioned, we haven't designed anything. We're conservatively estimating a 3-year construction timeline. We hope that can be reduced.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussions? Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
We have a motion.
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Next, we have commissioner items, commissioner appointees. Commissioner Mann, do you have any items or appointees? We're keeping them for now, right?
For now.
Commissioner Hammond, do you have any items?
I have no items, no appointees.
Pendelli?
None for me.
No, sir.
Commissioner Mann? Okay. I have one commissioner item this morning that we sent out this morning. I'd like to talk a little bit about one of our pride and joys here at RSW, and that's our public safety department. So, this board has shown the last couple of years this commitment to public safety in Lee County through the Sheriff's Department and other agencies throughout the area supporting our community involvement. You've seen recently what the sheriffs have done there, actually in the area about community involvement, being engaged with the community. And it's something that I think RSW over the years have been lack as far as acknowledgement of their employees and also lack of community involvement. So I'd like to talk about something we've been talking about for years now. I've talked to the agency before about it in private meetings with the officers and stuff about the Rapid Response Community Policing Vehicle Program. And what that basically does, it would actually could use the current fleet we have now and add more cars to the fleet as we go on, and to provide a presence in the community from RSW. It gives a benefit to the employees. It creates a savings for maintenance. It creates the savings of vehicle lifetime. You've seen it increase the lifetime go from 3 to 4 years for vehicles to 8 to 10 years. And it creates a better environment for the community. So either I can pass the gavel, or I'd like to see a motion made. The motion would read as direct board director to implement a rapid response vehicle policing program for the police department patrol unit with the current fleet of vehicles and added vehicles this coming budget year, and fully implemented by the year 23-24 budget.
I'll move that item, and just for the record, we certainly adopted this when I was Mayor of Sanibel, and we thought it was extremely helpful to certainly go in this direction. That was a couple years ago, so consistent with that, I'm happy to make the motion.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Any objection?
Objection.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And executive director items.
Yes, I got a few items. Thank you. RSW finished April 2022 as the 25th largest airport in the U.S., surpassing larger metropolitan airports like Washington Dulles and Charlotte. As business travel begins to recover, we expect to see aircraft shift back to markets like Austin, Baltimore, and Chicago Midway, which will eventually change our position in the rankings, as we know. We did set records at Southwest Florida International Airport and Page Field for March 2022. More than 1.5 million passengers traveled through RSW, an increase of 30% compared to 2021, and it was the best month in the 39-year history of the airport. Delta was the traffic leader, followed by Southwest, United, Spirit, and American. Page Field had more than 14,000 operations, a 10% increase compared to March 2021, and it was the best month in nearly 40 years for Page Field. Base operations sold more than 312 gallons of fuel in April, which was a 16% increase compared to last April and a new record for that month. New tour operator plans to begin flights here this month, actually this week, Cuba Azul. The flights will be operated by Swift Air, a charter airline, and it'll be twice weekly on Mondays and Friday to Havana, Cuba. I'm very pleased to report that our Honor Flight organization operated a flight from RSW to Washington, D.C. on April 30th for World War II, Korean, and Vietnam veterans to visit the memorials honoring their service. This is always a heartwarming event, and there were many people gathered at RSW that evening to welcome the veterans home and thank them for serving our country. As many of you may be familiar with, we did have a sale, pending sale for Commerce Lakes Park with the name of the company. The LLC is 1227 Holdings, which is Fort Myers Brewing Group. We did close on that this week. So we were excited to finally get that completed, and I know they were as well. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. And that closing took place. It was for $2,050,000, and it's a done deal. So we were excited about that, and that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
3 years in process, so thank you, Ben, with your staff, working with them the last couple of years. I know it was a long process, and we all got hit with COVID and everything, so thank you.
And I'd like to just personally like to thank Mark Trank, too. He put a lot of time and effort into that from the county attorney's office, so he did a great job on it. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sindelli?
Ben, I want to thank you, and I thank the whole staff for the honor flight. It's if you haven't been out there, I would recommend you go there. It's very emotional. It's very well organized. It's great to see young people understand what these veterans have brought to the table and carry that forward. And when it's done, the staff goes to work, and I usually hang around with a few people, have some coffee, and 45 minutes later, we're back running. So congratulations to the whole team, and thank you for doing that.
Ben, thank you for a great season. We've had a great season out here at the airport. Thank you for everything, your leadership. It's been a full year now for you, and thank you for stepping up and doing everything you've done the last year, you and all your staff and everything. So
here's the only problem I have with Ben. We've been to a couple events together, and I'm my size, and he steps into two pictures. The other day he comes and he goes, "Did I just ruin another picture?"
make him sit down next time.
Spencer Roach goes,
I think
so.
Yeah, make him sit down.
Always a pleasure to stand with you, Ben.
So, well, he's great for pictures like that, and that's why in the future when the airport's all done, I'd love to see a picture of you from the airport with all the police cars behind you in the building and everything done.
Got it.
$600 million.
Got it. I'll be
Great
happy to
picture
do
for
that.
you in a couple of years.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
It'd be a good picture.
Port Attorney, any items?
No matters, Chairman.
No problem. Any public comment on other matters at this time? Any other public comment? Okay. Well, we were adjourned the Port Authority meeting. We have a workshop immediately following this. If the board is okay with it, we'll just go directly into the workshop without a break, or do we need a break? Gentlemen?
No, I think we can go right into it.
Good. Okay.
Great.
We'll adjourn and we'll start our workshop now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, I'd like to ask Mr. McGonigal to get up there. He's going to walk us through some highlights of our budget. We have a PowerPoint deck that's going to be handed out, but it will also be showed up there on the screen, or I should say the wall.
And this for public notice, this workshop is regarding the budget, the 22-23 budget and discussion by the board and ASMC. You know what, I totally forgot to call in the special manager. I'm sorry. I don't know how I did that. Sorry, John, the chairman.
Oh, no problem.
Board, could you please entertain me calling on the special manager? I forgot to call on you guys for any comments from the special manager. I'm so sorry.
I would, as you know, we had a very tough season,
And then,
very busy. And our committee would like to extend our congratulations and appreciation to the staff and the employees for making it such a successful season as well. So we would like
Yeah.
And I don't know if any
Unbelievable
other
numbers.
members have anything to add?
Well, our timing on the planning for Skyplex is seeming to be impeccable because we've got 4 or 5 extremely large projects right around here that are coming to fruition as we speak. And I'm talking major stuff, and it's gonna fit right into what we're gonna be able to provide to the ancillary businesses that are gonna feed off of these major developments. And I'm just real pleased that Ben keeps staying right on top of it and keeping us moving forward, so thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Noel, you good?
Good.
Good.
I think that's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you again for everything you all doing. Thank you, Chairman.
And Robbie's a grandmother.
Oh,
She
no, I
said
just
she's good.
thumbs
She's
up.
good.
No, I said she's a grandmother now.
Oh, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grandma.
She does not look
That's a
like
thumbs up.
She hasn't told you yet.
I know.
I've seen pictures already.
I encourage you all to have a grandchild. It's the cutest little onesie from the port staff
Yes.
that has a little kid's airplane that says RSW on it.
Oh,
I think my son and daughter-in-law they're just more excited about that little outfit than any other outfit. It feels so official.
Congratulations.
Thank y'all.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Awesome. Brian, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is our 23 budget workshop. All the departments have submitted their budget to us. They did a great job. And so let me just show you a few dates. So here we are, May 5th through the budget workshop. In a couple of weeks, the airlines are coming in. We're going to present the draft budget to them like we do every May. June 21st, we'll come back in detail to ASMC with the budget. Back to you June 30th at the Joint Board. The first public hearing in September, the second one September 20th for final approval. So I just want to share a few slides with you. I don't have a lot, real kind of high level where we think the numbers are going to come in for 23. We started with passengers. This 9.9 million passengers in 19, that was a record. So we obviously took a dip. We think we're going to finish about 10.7 million passengers this year. And then next year we're budgeting 10.8, which is obviously a record. So it's good news, people coming back. Same thing with landed weight. Landed weight's important in our landing fee calculation, and it's the same story. It's climbing. So what we wanted to talk to you about was our operating expenses for next year. We're looking at about $49 million operating expense for next year. And I'm going to walk you through, but what we did is we're looking back at 2019 as a base year. 2019 was prior to the pandemic. It was a good year. It was a record year. So let's use that as a base and compare it to 19. So in 19, our operating budget was $33 million. We're jumping to $49 million. So what we did is just pure inflation, just inflation on its own. What is that? And we ran these CPI increases, and just inflation took it from 33 to this yellow column, 41 million. Okay? Then we said, what is the difference from 41 to 49? Well, we've got 4 kind of big items next year that we think we should just call to attention to because they're one-time items next year that are hitting the budget. And the first one is the mitigation park land management. As you know, we have 7,000 acres of mitigation off of Corkscrew. We purchased that back as part of the Midfield Terminal project. Where the Southwest Florida Water Management District and Corps engineer, their permits, they require us to keep that park free of exotics. We pay for this forever in perpetuity. We spend about $500 to $800 a year. There's a big number next year of 3.2 million, and it's for a couple of reasons. One, the exotic maintenance costs are just increasing, and then next year, this one-time exotic cleanup that we're doing next year is affecting almost the entire 7,000 acres, most of it. So we're required to do that. We don't expect that 3.2 million to continue. We think it's just we'll see what the number is next year. Mitigation Park, it's nice. It's won a lot of awards over the years. So we're proud of it. Another one I want to call out which is unusual purchase next year, is all of our shuttle bus to run the parking lot. We have 19 buses. They're all coming off of an older lease. They're high miles. There's 19 of them. We want to replace them all next year for a cost of $2.2 million. They're about $115,000 a piece. After we purchase these next year, we're going to get in more of a rotation and not have to do 19 again. So we're hoping to get in more of a 6-bus rotation. But we're at a point now where we need all 19 now. So if we can find a vendor and if we have board approval, we're hoping to get these in the door next year. Data.
About that, as far as the buses, when the new buses come in, what type of warranty will come with those vehicles? Will there be something you'd be maintaining here through your maintenance department, or would it be something you'd be automatically getting automatic?
Mr. Chair?
Would it
if I
be
may.
through
Yeah,
what the
so
manufacturers?
we'll be bidding that, so I can't say for sure exactly what the warranty is. Typically, they have, I think, 3-year warranties. We do outsource the maintenance on those. So that's currently done with Penske. It's a bid, so it's outsourced.
So the first 3 years, though, it would be maintenance. It'd be maintenance.
It's preventative maintenance. But James, can you confirm do you remember what the warranty was initially on these buses? Because these buses were originally, Mr. Chair, part of our parking lot management company's contract, if I recall. But
I don't recall the exact warranty, but to Mr. Siegel's point, they will come with a manufacturer's warranty.
Yeah.
Will require preventative maintenance to be performed during the warranty period.
Right.
And the current fleet, when new, the preventative maintenance and ultimately corrective maintenance and warranty claims were all handled through Penske, through that contract.
Okay, thank you. Just making sure it wasn't more usage or maintenance next door here.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not.
Could I
Yeah.
ask a couple questions? No. Before we go on, I wanted to go back to your landed weight and just ask, in your budget assumptions, are we taking into account that the new Amazon fulfillment center is going to be bringing a lot more freight in to the area than what's happened historically?
We're not seeing Amazon flights coming in here, if that's what
They
you
don't
mean.
come in?
No, they don't. No, that's all trucked.
Okay.
We'd love to see an Amazon flight come in.
Ask is how many acres are in the mitigation park?
7,000.
7, so it's the
big.
whole 7,000?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just a couple of questions. I mean, you mentioned lease on buses. They're not leased. We purchased them, right?
We're gonna purchase the next ones. We have leased in the past, and we don't want to do that anymore. We're
Okay.
gonna purchase.
Do you know what the useful life was, or you know how many years old they were that we're replacing?
5 to 7 years. Do you know how old those?
Miles?
Over 200,000 miles.
Okay.
They need to be replaced. Yeah.
Just trying to get some clarity.
Thank you.
Don't have a problem.
If I could just add a couple things. I just wanted to back up just a little bit on the inflationary increases. That 8.2 million, I was going to have Brian just highlight some of that 8.2 million. But
Sure.
I also just wanted to, we do use a zero-based budget methodology. We build our budget from zero every year. We just don't just add on. So I just wanted to kind of make that point. But then also, Brian, if you could just highlight that 8.2 million really kind of keeps us at the same level of service, if you will, that we did in 2019.
Yeah.
But Brian, if you could just
Yeah,
highlight
I
a
have
few of the items
yeah,
in that
yes,
8.2 million,
about
because that's the
4 items.
largest increase that we're
Yep.
seeing.
I'm
over the years.
presuming it's a modified zero, not a true traditional
Yes.
zero. I don't think you have the time to do it.
It's they
Having
submit.
come from Xerox, I understand a true traditional zero-based budget.
Yeah. I would say modified's true, but I mean, we do, they submit detail supporting every dollar in their budget.
Yep.
So,
Got it.
yeah.
Okay.
The departments do a great job in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been mentioned, there was about 4 items in that 8 million that stuck out. One of them was utilities, was 1.1 million, that's grown over the years. Fuel, 400,000. Just some R&M, repair and maintenance items, 800, and data processing is about 2.3 million. So there's the lion's share of that 8.
Any type of adjustment relative to salaries?
We're going to talk about that on a separate slide.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Great, thanks.
Thank you. This is operating, Commissioner. So.
So real quickly before we leave this slide too, one other thing I just wanted to, so you've listed that, I imagine the 8.2 million in inflationary increases, those are gonna be probably recurring dollars that we'll see. The budget is probably gonna be, our expenditures will be that much more going forward as we build out future year budgets, but is it necessary to put the mitigation, land management, and the shuttle bus replacement, these one-time costs, is it necessary to build that into the recurring budget, or would it be better to look at maybe excess reserves? Over on the county side, a lot of times, instead of putting major one-time cost into the recurring budget, we'll put them into, we'll take them out of excess reserves and pay for them so that they don't get ultimately built into next year's budget, and somebody says, oh, wow, I got an extra 8 million, in my budget I can spend.
It's a great question. We would, for comparative purposes going forward, we would need to show you that those are not part of our continuing budget going forward, because we're not going to pull them out of reserves. We're going to charge the airlines for them.
Okay.
Obviously as part of our budget, but we would not, for transparency purposes, not make those one-time costs part of our continuing budget going forward. So, because our base budget would really start with that yellow column. That's really what our continuing budget is. And the difference between that yellow column, the 41, and that 48 is those additional items. We won't see those additional items next year. There may be some new additional items, but in terms of our continuing budget, those shouldn't be in there.
So, okay, so that's
That
good.
makes
So
sense.
so the potential for the 24 budget, if I'm reading it correctly, then could be down more towards that 41.5 million because
It
you'll
could.
back out some of these one-time.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Unless there's new one-time items that we don't know about today.
Okay.
That come into play. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Just a
Sure.
follow-up. I imagine that you're gonna go into much more granular detail at a subsequent, this is more high level, correct? This presentation?
Yes.
You're gonna get into much more detail at subsequent meetings.
In June.
And what these items might be. I mean, I appreciate the $8.2 million, but I'd like to see
It's broken
some more
down
detail.
by line. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes, sir.
That'll be the June workshop.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, we'll drill down.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So if there's no more questions on operating, this next.
I do have one other item that we just talked about. It was the commissioner item. And we will make sure that when we bring back our June budget, that we take into consideration the take-home vehicle policy, incorporate that into the budget. And we will make sure we highlight that and discuss what that is as part of the 2023 budget. So our budget will change, obviously, for that, but no problem. I just wanted to make sure we'll do that and obviously make some estimates in terms of maintenance and things like that, but it won't be a problem to do that and come up with some good numbers for y'all.
And that's why in my motion I included current vehicles, because the current vehicles you're probably going to auction off this year, instead of having that lump sum purchase, a 4-year-old car, you can obviously keep that online. And I think an employee would be happy to use that for their daily office to drive back and forth, and you see a decrease in maintenance and miles. So the 3 or 4-year-old car now will last 8 to 10 years. As Commissioner Mann said before, we all seen those Ford pickup trucks that are 8 years old, 80,000 miles. They still keep running. So I think the employees would be a great benefit to have a vehicle that's 4 or 5 years old and still be able to drive it, and just add vehicles as your normal purchasing, to attrition you would do through your budget.
Yeah, and to your point, we have currently vehicles that are assigned currently to employees that ultimately they could take them home. So we won't have to actually purchase vehicles in that particular case, but there will be some additional vehicles that obviously we would be purchasing. So no problem.
And that's another part of the motion was patrol vehicles, so it wouldn't be handed out to administrative staff like captains and majors and, chiefs. It would be mostly just patrol everyday people using the vehicles.
Yes,
so
sir.
it would be for that use only.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Next slide is, we're gonna continued use of our CARES, CARISA, and ARPA funds to reimburse costs. We're very fortunate that we got this money. It's helping stabilize the rates. So in 2020, we used 11 million to offset operating and debt, and we did it again in 21. 22, we're estimating about 14 million. In next year's budget, we have programmed $10 million of ARPA funds. So we got, again, really lucky. We got 79 million. After next year, we'll have 23 left to spend. And we have until 2025 to spend it, so still got 2 more years. So we're very lucky that we got this money. You asked about personnel. This is what we're thinking next year. This is what is programmed in the budget. If you recall, last year we did a hybrid for raises. We had a lump sum on 10/1 in addition to merit on anniversary dates. We're proposing a 5% pay plan adjustment October 1st to all employees. That would be about $1.1 million cost, and then up to 3%. You can get anywhere from 0 to 3 on merit on your anniversary date, and that will cost. That's programmed to about $550,000. We are allocating resources for 18 new positions next year. I have a manning table on the next slide. Those 18 positions are kind of scattered throughout the organization. I'll show you, of 1.2 million.
Which way?
Yep.
So, just to peel this back a little bit more, your pay plan adjustment, I mean, I know for a long time, salaries are compressed here, and obviously there was a disparity or potential disparity. Are you taking into consideration any type of pay grade adjustments whatsoever, or is the 5 just a COLA?
The 5 is just a COLA. And we are, as part of next year's budget, planning to do a compensation study, very similar to what we did it was about 5 or 6 years ago. However, I do recognize things are moving pretty quickly, and there is a need for us to do some pay plan adjusting. However, the way we did it last year was very successful. Not last year, when we did it 5 or 6 years ago, the study that we did was really worked out very well. It was very supported by the board. It was very well received by the employees, where we actually analyzed everything on a per position basis and made pay plan adjustments. We know it's necessary to do that, and we know that there are some pay plan, there's market adjustments that need to take place as well. We recognize that. So,
yeah, my concern in general, honestly, is that, having been involved in government for now 16 years, there was a certain compression for 7 years that took place. Now that we're having, and I always said the pendulum swings both ways. Okay, so when we don't have revenue, we can't honestly operate, and I'm not going to deficit spend. But as we do have revenue, there's opportunities to look at this, and that's the balance you have, is to try to make sure we adjust and we are the employer of choice. So I really would, at least from my point of view, encourage that we do that. It's critical right now with 11.5 million openings that are out there, that we continue to make sure we're competitive. And I don't want to be overly competitive, but I want to be competitive and recognize just the sacrifices that were made. We went through a very similar thing when I was in Sanibel, and still able to achieve a balanced budget and even get a rollback rate. So we need to look at what our core group is, and it's people. From this commissioner's point of view, that's what I look at. So I'd really like to do that. And I think a year from now is a great idea, but I think we need to potentially look at some interim employment, something we need to do today.
all right. And Commissioner, there's opportunities to do some pay plan adjustments now. And from my perspective, if we wanted to head in that direction, we certainly could. It would just lessen what we need to do a year from now or a year and a half from now, because we know that there's some deficiencies throughout the organization. Things have become very competitive. Our organization, I mean, there's 60 to 70 airports, medium to large airports, in the country, obviously, and we have, it is somewhat specialized. We haven't seen a tremendous amount of turnover in some of our professional and specialized positions. However, we are seeing a lot more turnover than we ever have in this organization. And this is in the 30 years I've been here. So we know that a lot of it has to do with salaries. And we need to be focused on that.
I mean, I recognize and I certainly employ trying to do whatever studies, but as someone that employs quite a few people, we try to be as proactive as we can in trying to recognize the sacrifices they made during the recessionary times for us, at least in the private sector. And then when I was mayor of Sanibel, certainly did that. Again, it's a complicated balance of making sure we look at revenues, look at what we have determined to be the priority expenses we need to address, and then obviously still be cognizant and be a good taxpayer steward for taxpayer dollars. So that's kind of the balance you need to do. But from my point of view, a year from now probably is a little bit too late.
Okay.
You know, so if we can do something in a hybrid, some other cities are doing some type of blanket to do as an interim to get there, another X, Y, Z. That's why I asked about the 5%, trying to understand what that might be. And maybe for the board's consideration, you can give us an indication of what maybe an additional 2 or 3%. And I'm looking for a salary grade adjustment. I don't believe that we're going to be able to do it from a COLA point of view, but we need to do something and just understand what that cost factor is. I look at 1.1 for 5%. I don't know if we need to look at across the board, but I'd like to at least have some more information, at least from this commissioner's point of view.
Well, and I'd be happy to just from a pure metric perspective, additional pay plan, a pay plan adjustment, because we're not proposing really a pay plan adjustment. I apologize. It does say that, but that 5% does represent a COLA adjustment October 1, and then the merit, the 3% is you can earn up to 3%. So for every 1%, if we were to arbitrarily say we wanted to do not arbitrarily, bad choice of words, but if we were to say a 2% pay plan adjustment, we wanted to do an additional 2%. That 2%, every 1% is $200,000, and about 2 cents on our cost per employment that we charge the airlines.
Right.
So my point for bringing that up is it's not incredibly impactful in going to change our overall cost of doing business here for the airlines. We can do that, and it will lessen the impact of what we would do in the future. So if it was the will of the board to do something more from a pay plan adjustment perspective, we could certainly come back in June and propose something more than what we're proposing here. And it could be scalable. It could be, for different areas of the organization. That's what we're here today to, talk about and what the will of the board is. But I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think, what's different about this organization is unlike, what I've done my entire life from the government's point of view is I'm mostly balancing revenue streams like ad valorem taxes. This has a different component to it where we do have an opportunity to certainly pass on the cost. Listen, I get on a plane more than most people, and the airline tickets and everything else I've gone through has gone up dramatically. Car rental, hotel, there's just cost, and we have the ability to allocate that additional expenditure over to it because, Dave certainly did the same. So where we're an anomaly, we're not really ad valorem tax driven. This is an opportunity where I think creatively you can certainly try to increase overhead expense. You can certainly pass along the expense where it's not just all endured and going to, potentially decrease the bottom line.
And we can, and I know we all understand that when we make these decisions today, these are long-term decisions.
Absolutely.
They're not one-time decisions. However, I'll tell you that, we're faced with, $1.5 billion in capital improvements over the next 10 years. From where I'm sitting, I want to have some of the best people around me to support that capital program. So these are long-term decisions that we should be thinking about in terms of people, and in the overall long terms of things, I think they're very wise decisions to make.
And these employees get it. I mean, as someone that was in office for 7 years in a row, there were no increases. They understand when we hit a recession. They understand when, everybody could read, what our revenue looks like. And we talk about record, it's a time where the pendulum goes this way. If next year we're in a recession, I'm sure we'll have a whole different conversation. And I'm sure that everybody will adjust accordingly. But at the moment, I just think we need to consider that. That's just my point of view.
Commissioner Wayne, your comments about taking action sooner than next year, do you want to make that a motion, or do we just want to get consensus?
What I'm just trying to get some consensus,
as
is
far as
what
that.
my belief is. You know, I believe there's a very unique way of increasing some of the pay that we have, adjusting pay grades, adjusting what we need to do, and augment and certainly, you know, have that adjustment, you know, passed along, so it's just not totally, and I just my belief. I'd love to hear from some other commissioners. I don't have a problem putting it as a motion on the floor, but I just want to make sure that I'm not, you know, in a viewpoint where I'm by myself.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, you know, I'm tracking right along with you, Commissioner Wayne. You know, you look at the situation out there, and I don't think there's a single one of us who doesn't go to a Horizon Council or a forum these days where affordable housing's not a discussion, right? And, you know, this sounds oversimplistic to say, but, you know, one of the best, fastest ways to help people afford a house is to pay them more, right? I mean,
Right.
I've thought about that, you know, to employers, if you've got employees that are really valuable to you and you're saying that they can't afford to live here, well, then pay them what it would cost to live here, you know? And so I think this is one of those ways we can help with that. I think the Realtor Association, if I'm remembering correctly, said you need to make close to $70,000 a year to be able to afford the average mortgage payment or rent in our market these days. And so I think you're really on track there, especially with helping some of our employees who are the lower earners to get up to that category where they can be able to afford, you know, to live here, and whether rent or mortgage. And so, you know, that was going to be my question was, what options do we have to help folks who maybe make that less than $75,000 a year, maybe get even a little bit more of an adjustment?
We can scale it. There's so many ways we can slice this. We could certainly pick certain levels in the organization and scale it that, you know, below a certain level in the organization, their COLA, maybe their October 1 adjustment is higher than others. I can assure you that your airport team is very open to doing anything like that. We brought what we brought so we could start having conversations like this. So what we do bring back to you in June is really what the board was interested in seeing. We could certainly increase the COLA for maybe the management level and below the management level positions to something higher than 5%. You know, make that 6 or 7%, something that's maybe a little more in line with what, you know, the CPI and inflationary indexes are showing right now. I think I just read it was 8 something, you know. Certainly could do that, leave the rest of the organization at the 5, and then to Commissioner Ruane's point, we could then also take a look at a pay plan adjustment on top of everything, which would be across the board for everybody. It's really, there's many different ways to slice this, and we can analyze it in a lot of different ways.
Well, with this being a workshop format, I think it's good that we put those ideas on the table to review then at a future meeting.
We've talked about this before. I think me and Ben talked about this, and thank you for bringing it up, Commissioner Hammond, that you're thinking the same thing. We talked about it a few months ago at lunch, actually, about having the higher paid people maybe not quite to see as much of an increase. They're making $130,000 a year compared to somebody making $40,000 a year. Sure. The 5% for the person making $40,000 is a whole big difference between the person making $150,000 a year. So, thank you for looking at. One thing I do want to touch on real quick is when your discussion with Commissioner Wayne was about this continuing costs. And how much is, you know, 1% is $200,000. So, you know, we talk about this every couple of years, but the reimbursement we give the airlines every year, I think I asked you guys earlier before this meeting, over $10 million last year we reimbursed, shared with the airlines. And I understand we're talking about ad valorem tax when it comes to county business. That's our neighbors, our residents, our business owners. But these fees that come from the airlines, going back to the airlines, which are our neighbors, we want to do business, we want to have good relationships. But that 60-40 split, do we surplus, do we give the airlines back every 10 years? I mean, every year, the $10 million like last year, do we really have to give them that much back? So that $10 million, I'm not saying hold all of it back, but I know it's negotiable. I don't want to be friends with airlines, but, you know, as you said earlier, some of the airlines do not get it. Some of the airports do not give as much back or anything back. Maybe that's something we could talk about too, the board, how much we give back to the airlines. It's negotiations. And companies like Delta, for example, I'm not sure if I want to negotiate that way with Delta. So I know we have to be fair across the board, personally, but that's a lot of money going back, taken away. It could come back to our neighbors, our residents here at Lee County though.
I mean, go ahead, Ray, I didn't wanna hog the conversation.
No, it's not that long ago that I came from the private sector, and so I have a mentality of, how fast can we affect some change and improvement? As we all know, there's a lot of need out there, and that need, is now. And so I would be in favor, as you go through this process, of what is a near-term effect that we can have, and as we address the long-term piece there, so. The last thing I wanna hear is we're gonna do a study and put it on the shelf, and meanwhile, people can't afford to put a roof over their head.
Right.
So,
We agree.
let's address the need as quickly as we can.
That's why I think of the surplus might be a way to look at some of the extra revenue there. If we need an extra $1 million, $2 million to fund some of these projects, some of these items like this during this budget process, that's something we can look at. So it's a surplus to the airlines.
Commissioner Pendergrass, you certainly got into much more specifics, but the unusual part is the allocation, the split, and how you do that. Every corporation around is finding these challenges. Starbucks, many other entities have already been proactive. You know, in my own private organization with over 500 people, we did a mandatory 5%, and I don't want it to be a COLA. It's not a COLA. It is a salary adjustment to try to have the salaries in line. Because when we were going through recessionary times, I could tell you people weren't borrowing. And my employees went through 0% increases as well. So whether it's the government or not, we're just in an unusual situation. I think Commissioner Pendergrass identified well, and certainly appreciate the support from other members, that we can certainly allocate this in a different way than traditional government. I mean, it's just a little bit different. I think the Commissioner Hammond and Pendergrass's point of view, we can certainly look at this and peel this back for a workshop so we can have a productive conversation. But I want to be proactive in doing this. Because a year from now, it's gonna be too late.
I understand.
And that's my concern.
Noel, you wanted to say something?
In looking at long-term consequences for the raises, I'm just curious as to what impact this will have in terms of the current percentage that we're paying for contributions to the retirement fund. How will this impact that, and what kind of percentages are we looking at in terms of increase if we increase the amount here by 1.1 million in terms of employee?
Well, the numbers, and Brian, jump in here, but the numbers that we're sharing with you include that.
Yep.
Yeah. So
They do.
because it automatically increases the retirement contribution that we make to employee, on behalf of employees.
So we'll be looking at that
So,
number.
when we're giving you these numbers, they include all that. It's not just the raw
Okay.
dollars.
Thank you.
But it's a good question. Yeah, thank you.
And
Is-
those rates,
Employees is all the employees under FRS? Is only the certain public safety and some administration under FRS?
No, the entire organization is under FRS.
Everybody's under FRS?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
But a different.
Yeah, there's different levels. There's high risk,
1.6
senior
high risk.
management, and then regular retirement. Yeah.
and those rates change every July 1st with the state statute. So,
So if I could I recap? Just do a quick little recap, just to make sure we got the proper, I understand the direction here. So the next time this budget would come back to the board for review would be in June, next month. At that time, couple changes that potentially we would be proposing for tentative approval by the board would be obviously again, the take-home vehicle. We'll incorporate that into the budget. And we will look at adjustments to compensation, really looking at it from three perspectives. Cost of living adjustment, pay plan adjustment, and a merit adjustment that would occur on their anniversary dates. And also, I think what I heard was that on a COLA basis, look at a higher COLA possibly for lower level positions than we might see for maybe some of the higher paid positions like in the management and higher. Maybe program a little higher COLA adjustment for those lower level positions.
I'm not looking at it as a COLA. I'm looking at it as a salary adjustment. COLA is the wrong word.
Okay.
Because what we're trying to do is adjust those salary levels for the compression they endured while we drove the budget and ran a budget at 0% for 7 years. And
Okay.
this board
Okay.
did so. So
All right.
what I don't want people to have any impression is that COLA is 10%, ongoing, because next year, if we have a different inflationary way, the Fed continues to do what it did yesterday in a very aggressive, I will tell you, this is gonna stop pretty quickly. And what I don't want people to have is a perception that this is COLA, because COLA sometimes, when COLA was negative, and COLA was negative during the downturn, we didn't take anything away from employees. We held it at zero and ate that. So I just caution the word COLA. It kind of really is a sensitive thing from my point of view.
Okay. Well, and that's why, would it be fair to say that 5%, something greater than that 5% for October 1 adjustments?
Look at the three buckets.
Okay.
You have a COLA up here right now.
Mhm.
You have a merit increase up right now. I'd like a pay grade adjustment. So that's the only thing that's not on this chart,
Okay.
and that's what I'd like to see, if that's okay with the rest of the board members.
But may I?
Sure.
But did I hear you say, and Commissioner Sandali, is the need is now?
Yep.
We don't want to wait until October on the last one you said, the salary adjustment. So if you do that, how's it going to impact the rest of our year?
Well, I think
Is that what
my understanding
you
is
were
that,
saying? I
Yes,
mean, that
so,
should be
so
now,
what I'd love to see is what this
and
cost
not
looks
wait
like
till
in a month.
October.
And maybe before we get into the rest of the budget, we can make some type of adjustment. I just want to understand the cost. Until I have numbers,
Do that now.
it's hard for me to throw darts at the moment. But yeah, I'd like to be proactive instead of reactive. We're proactive today in being consistent with other municipalities with take-home vehicles, and we're trying to be proactive. Let's try to and it's a workshop, so we have data, we look at it, and certainly if the data is compelling at June's workshop, we can certainly make a motion, we can have a discussion, we can do whatever we need to do. But that's what I just want to see the cost, and that's really the most important thing at the moment. But three different buckets.
Sure.
Just direction, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I might?
Yes.
If the board anticipates taking a motion and giving direction at the June meeting, that we advertise and conduct that either as the main body of your regular meeting or something other than a workshop. As you know, your hands are somewhat tied in a workshop setting, taking formal motions. Therefore, if there's a thought that direction is going to be given to make a change, that we conduct that as part of your regular meeting or a special meeting of the Port Authority so that you can properly take motion.
can I just, so the June meeting is not planned for a budget workshop. It is planned for approval of the budget, where then it sits on the shelf until public hearing. We can certainly talk, during that budget approval process, we can talk about changes and adjustments to that tentative approval budget, and then we can make them typically what we would do if there were going to be changes in June to the budget, we would make those at the hearing, the first public hearing. And the reason it happens that way is because the reason we get tentative approval in June is that we're obligated to notify the airlines 60 days prior to the effective date of when our rates are going to change, of what we think the rates are going to be. That's why we get our approval in June.
So what's humanly practical we can do.
Yeah, no, and that's fine.
And I think we could be
And that would
line it up properly and have the true actual meeting as opposed to a workshop. I thought at the workshop, what we can do is at least have the information, have a good dialogue, and then obviously they need to give notification. We could have a meeting and certainly go forward. But again, until we have consensus or at least some direction, I just want to see the data right now.
Certainly, and I was just suggesting a path forward to give the Port Authority maximum flexibility in June, in case the board, there was some discussion about some interim. Well, if that's going to be the case, that would be obviously this budget year, and we would need to do that in a regular meeting, a non-workshop setting.
So in a workshop, how do I give you direction to advertise?
Consensus.
Okay.
So I have a question for the county attorney. So regarding that, so with the budget presented back to us from the director and the airport staff in June, if we don't agree with that, can we make those changes at that meeting in June, or does that have to be advertised based on what Ben was saying? It has to give 60-day notice to the airlines. So do we have to Would that,
You can
will we
make
be able
those
to make those,
changes.
we
in
can make
June.
the changes within June by act of the board?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we present those changes at the first public hearing. Where yeah,
September.
Okay.
which is in September. But we'll have made those changes and notified the airlines.
So since we can't take a motion today, we're in consensus, and you have any questions from the direction you've gotten so far today?
Yeah, sorry, but I just want to make sure, so we're.
3 buckets.
3 buckets?
Yep.
Yes, sir. So we've got the 5%.
Yep.
We've got the 3%, and then there's going to be another number.
Yep.
That we're going to propose, and that other number, that third number, which I understand is going to be a pay grade adjustment.
Correct.
Market adjustment. Is the board looking for us to make that this year?
Yes.
Or, that's great to know. If that's the case, I can just make that a separate item on our agenda in June. It doesn't have to be part of our budget at all.
So you can make that as part of a consent agenda?
I'll make that a
or
separate agenda
administrative
item.
Item?
I'll just make that part of a completely separate agenda item.
Let's do that.
And then it's not even part of 2023's budget.
Let's do that.
Does that make sense? Okay. If the board, if,
Just consensus.
okay,
And,
I can do that.
Is there-
Then there'll be 2 buckets on the budget and 1 bucket for this year.
We've addressed all 3 items just differently, different timeframes.
Is there consensus for the board to direct staff to review the surplus that's given back to the airlines every year to use that funding for some necessary needs for the Port Authority budget? Is there consensus for that, to review that process?
I guess in those lines, but what I was liking to see is how this filters through. Isn't some of the expense going to be passed along anyway?
Can I, Mr. Chairman? The surplus revenues that goes back to the airlines, we're obligated to give to them. I can't, we can spend more of it before it drops to the bottom line. Okay.
So you're going to.
But once it's there, it's theirs. So what you're talking about, like what we're talking about now, that bucket of doing something now for the employees, that'll reduce the net revenues, which would ultimately reduce their 40%. So
You're going to get there in a different manner.
we're getting there in a different manner, but yeah.
Commissioner Hammond?
I did have a question. Thanks so much. Just because I'm the way I think really linearly. So thinking about this, then 3 buckets, I got it, and I think that's a great way to look at it. So if you're going to have 1 bucket labeled COLA, in my mind, I'd like that tied to an actual cost of living index. Then, so would you thinking about this scenario, would you tie the COLA to the actual CPI increase? So whatever it is what the COLA is. And then you'd have the merit bucket, which is that 3% that they'd get on their anniversary date. And then the adjustment bucket, that could be this 5%. Because when we're talking about 5%, that really is that is not tied to any index. That is a number that we picked as a pay plan adjustment. So would you do the 5% at the next meeting as a pay plan adjustment, and then bring forward for next year the actual CPI number plus a 3% merit?
Can I have a follow-up before you fully answer that? So of the 3% merit, what percentage of the 3% weighted average is impacted into the budget? Is it
About 2.5.
2.5?
Yeah.
Okay, so theoretically, the majority of people receive 7.5.
Yeah, I would say that's probably good, yeah.
That's true.
So we came up with, the 5 plus 3 was kind of the CPI number. But we wanted to take part of that CPI, if you will, and make it part of the merit. We were trying to not be overly aggressive for starters, in terms of what we were bringing to the table. After this discussion, I recognized that we have some room here in terms of what we could be doing. So what I would like to propose and see if this works is that we do a Yeah, 5% mid-year, a 5% June item, because I think that'll really take care of a lot of what we would see in a study, but we're still gonna do the study, because we may still have some adjustments that need to take place. That's my recommendation. And then a CPI type adjustment October 1st would, if you want to have it tied directly to an index, would need to be around 7 to 8%.
At the same time, you'd be going through collective bargaining with the 1826 for that group of employees, which would be probably doing salary comparisons for their districts.
Yeah,
and
oh,
areas.
absolutely.
So
This is
give you comparables there to look at.
it'd be very comparable. So you'd be looking at, my suggestion would be looking at 7 plus 3 in next year's budget.
Maybe for just clarity, we can certainly look at what that expense looks like. I mean, I understand it's 200,000 per percent, but you can put it in black and white. We can have a discussion. We can look at how it filters through the P&L, how it filters to the bottom line, what it filters through the airlines, and have a more robust conversation. But I like what you're saying.
We'll show you that.
Black and white.
We'll show you that. But if the board's okay conceptually with that, we'll show you what the impacts are. And obviously in June, if there's questions, concerns about what the impacts are, then we can make those adjustments at that meeting, and then we'll finalize those at the public hearing.
I like that direction.
If that works. Okay, I think I got it.
Sorry, Brian. You want to get back on track?
Brian, do you have it?
Great job, Brian.
Yeah, I'm still here.
We didn't forget about you.
Can I go home now?
I'm writing all this down.
Probably didn't go sit down. Did you go to Starbucks a minute ago?
Where were we? Okay, that was funny. 18 position. I thought I'd just show you where the 18 positions that we're proposing are going.
That's page 6.
That's
Or
page 8. So here's our manning table over the years. We're proposing 2 positions in admin, 1 in human resources, 1 in IT. We're proposing 3 in development and 13 in aviation, catching up in, we're proposing 5 new police officers, catching up there, 3 more in aviation security, that's aircom, and 2 more in operations, that's in the terminal. So these 18 positions is what we're proposing at a cost of $1.2 million. Any questions on that? We can, is there any questions on that? No?
Nope.
Okay. So if you recall, I talked about the base year of 2019. I thought it'd be good just to show you real high level, what does 23 compare to 19? And this is before any of the adjustments that we just talked about, but we got 9 million passengers in 19, we're going to 10. Look at the increase in revenue. It's really healthy, going up. Personnel's going up. We talked about that. Operating going up. Fortunately, we have 10 million in CARES funding to stabilize the rates. We didn't have CARES funding over here. So if you look at the cost per employment to 19, it's actually less. It's $7.38. And our cash position is stronger and our coverage is stronger. So we're in a much better shape than 19, and 19 was a good year. So I thought that was kind of a high-level chart that you'd find interesting. And then the next one is, how does the budget look year to year? And this is kind of what we're going to talk to with the airlines next month, actually in a couple of weeks. How does the budget look from this year to next year? We budgeted 8.3 million passengers. We're going to exceed that easily. So passengers are up budget to budget. Revenues are up 37%. Non-airline revenues are up to budget. Personnel is up. As I walked you through, operating is up. We're going to use about 10 million in CARES funding next year. And if you look at budget to budget, if you look at CPE, the cost to the airlines is minimal. It's less than 1%. And our coverage is even better. So again, this is before including what we talked about today, but it's a strong budget next year compared to this year.
And we still have $23 million left over to
That's
offset
right.
some of the expenses.
Get 2 more years, exactly.
Right.
Yep, you got it. So, and if I could just ending here on Page, Page Field's doing great. It's all about gallons sold at Page. So in '21, it was a record 2.5 million gallons. We're off the charts this year. We think we're going to sell about 3.3 million. We don't think we can sustain that, so we're budgeting 2.5 million gallons next year. And we're also, in Pagefield budget, we're incorporating a slight hanger increase of 4% on all hangers. And we're also adding we're proposing to add 2 full-time positions next year at Page. So it's still showing off positive surplus. Pagefield's doing good. And that, if you don't have any questions, and then in next year's budget, we're programming capital projects obviously like we do every year. These are the 4 biggest ones that stick out. The terminal expansion, $330 million, you approved that. That started in October, 3-year effort. Design of Concourse E was just approved today, $46 million. We're rehabbing the roads on the north side. That's bid and getting ready to go. It's $20 million. And we're at the end of design for new hangars at Page. We're estimating about $35 million. We're going out to bid shortly on this, and we'll bring that contract back to you. So we'll share those numbers with you and a funding plan. And that's it. Any other questions?
Any questions for the board? Nope. Special management team? Any questions? Jeremy, you good?
I'm good.
Any questions for the board? Ben, you have anything else to follow up or any questions or?
No, sir.
Concerns? All good? Okay.
And when's the new tower gonna be operational? Any update on that?
So the new tower is planned to be operational first quarter, I believe, of 2023. Should be, right now the FAA I know is in the process of putting in all their equipment. So, but yeah, first quarter of 2023. So.
You're waiting on them, right?
Yeah, they're putting it. They got about a year worth of work. It's less than a year now. So.
And the 777X is gone now?
It's gone. Yeah.
So we hope they come back in the future for Boeing. So.
There'll be pretzels next time too.
Great open house at Payne Field with ATP. That was a lot of fun.
Great. Okay, well, anything with the county attorney? You good?
No, sir.
Okay,
Thank
we'll
you.
go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.
Thanks.
Crazy enough.